Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. May I ask the photographers to please take your seats or your positions back on the platforms back there, if you don't mind. Thanks very much. My name is Clay McConnell. I'm Head of Communications for Airbus Americas and am very pleased to welcome you to today's Airbus press conference. Presenting the 2017 full-year financial results to you today, here on stage with me are Airbus Chief Executive Officer Tom Enders and our Chief Financial Officer Harold Wilhelm. We thank all of you who have accepted our invitation to join us here at the Event Center in Toulouse. Welcome to you. And to those joining us via our live webcast, wherever in the world you're watching, a warm welcome to you as well. Let me give you a quick rundown on the proceedings here, if you don't mind. In a few minutes, Tom Enders will start with some brief introductory remarks of the 2017 results, as well as his take on the status of the company. And then we'll ask Harold Wilhelm to present the 2017 financial and divisional performance highlights in more detail. Now, we know that some of you followed the analyst call this morning, and in addition, Tom and Harold have told me they are very keen to take as many of your questions as possible in order to make the most out of your time with us today. So we will keep our initial remarks and discussion relatively brief in order to give you the chance to ask whatever questions you have related to our disclosure. Please be advised that the entire press conference will be conducted in English, and there are no simultaneous translations. After the press conference, you are invited to a lunch buffet here, and if needed, you can stay with us here at the conference zone as late as 3 p.m. The conference zone will close after that time. Our organization team and the team of spokespeople both are here to assist you with whatever help you might need, so please do not hesitate to contact us if you require our assistance. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please familiarize yourself with the Safe Harbor Statement, which you can see on the screens now. Remember that all forward-looking statements, such as in our guidance, are based on assumptions. As conditions may change, so may our projections and plans. I know you will all want to read this statement in detail, so I'll give you just a moment to do so. Okay, now let's take a look back at Airbus in 2017. It was a remarkable year in many ways. And before I give the floor to Tom, please enjoy this short recap of many of last year's achievements. Here we go indeed. Tom, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Clay. How about a cup of coffee for Harold and me? Okay, good. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. As Clay said, we observed that some of you did listen in to our investor call. So I'm probably not repeating all what I said in the investor conference, but I tried to make, as you said, a brief summary. So 2017 was indeed a very successful year for us at Airbus. And I have to say, the results of that year, particularly a year that was not short on challenges, that was not short on turmoil and reporting, particularly in the media, the result of this year 2017 for us at Airbus is very encouraging. At Airbus, those of you who know us know that we thrive on challenges, and we never ever give up. We deliver aircraft right until the very end of the year, until the 30th of December or the 31st. I don't know what the last delivery was last year. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is indeed Airbus's DNA. I want to stress that, particularly after, as I said, a year that was very challenging. We overachieved practically all our KPIs, and Harold will allude to that a little later. I have to say some of these overachievements were even surprising for me. That results, I think, in a very good dividend proposal. As we say in the press release, that's at the upper end of our dividend policy, and again, the CFO will certainly speak a little bit more about that. We did not only overachieve KPIs at commercial aircraft. I think we had a pretty good year also at helicopters. We had a strong order intake, for instance, book-to-bill of more than 1. Very encouraging that we got substantial orders for the Super Puma, again in helicopters, you know, the bread and butter business of the helicopter division for many, many years. In defense, also good results. The transformation that the top team there around Dick Croker has implemented is amazing. That division is really gearing up for the future and very much also for the digital future. At the same time, order intake in military aircraft particularly was good. Medium and light, for instance, one of the legacy businesses that we have is still going very strong, encouraging new orders for the Eurofighter Typhoon, Kuwait, Qatar. I think there's more coming. And overall, defense business is picking up. As I said in the investor call, it's not going through the roof. I don't see that, certainly not in Europe. But it's encouraging to see it growing again after many years where it was going down. One of the exciting things we did last year was the acquisition of the C-Series, or the majority in our partnership with Bombardier. Ladies and gentlemen, that is going ahead very well. If anything, I think we can say we're probably ahead of schedule. The antitrust approvals are coming in pretty good, pretty fast. I think you all watched the ruling of the ITC, the US International Trade Commission, was it 2 weeks ago or so? I just incidentally happened to be in Montreal that day of joy for our partners, obviously. You know, as a result was 4-0 Bombardier versus Boeing. It's a great aircraft, and we expect that Bombardier will be starting deliveries to Delta very soon. That, by the way, in no way impacts on our plans to build up a great final assembly in Mobile, because the US is a very, very important market for the C-Series. Challenges, and I think then I'm already done with my brief summary, and we can hand over to Harold. We go forward. Obviously, and it's a good challenge to have, ladies and gentlemen, due to our huge order backlog. The number one operational challenge is obviously the ramp-up. Continue the ramp-up. Continue the ramp-up of the 320 program, 320neo, the 350, obviously, which is going amazingly well, and that against the background of continuing troubles, challenges of the engines. I think you've seen the latest. I said that before. I know some of the media, some of the analysts have poured doom and gloom over Airbus and say, oh my goodness, these guys are lost now for 2018. That's a little bit premature, ladies and gentlemen. With the beginning of the year, we are used to do crisis management on the engine situation now for a couple of years. Believe me, we're working very closely together with our partners at Pratt and our partners at CFM as well. And the focus of all this is the customer. to minimize disruptions for our customers due to these engine glitches as much as possible, and to get back into delivering good engines as quickly as possible so that we can continue the delivery process in 2018. And I have every confidence in our teams who've done miracles in the last couple of years, and I have confidence in our cooperation with Brett, with CFM, that we can mitigate this situation as well. Then we have a lot of management changes this year, largely generational changes. John Leahy was in the picture, Fabrice Bregier was in the picture. Two veterans of the Airbus business are leaving the company soon. But on the other hand, it's very encouraging to see the talents that are coming in, that are replacing them. Eric Schulz from Rolls-Royce has really hit the road running. I could witness that at the Singapore Air Show recently. Guillaume Ferry, who will be taking over from Fabrice next week, formally, is already in the midst of the operational battle with the engine makers, with the engine challenges, etc. Guillaume, those of you who have followed him and his career in helicopters in recent years, is really a battle-proven, crisis management-proven manager, and I'm sure he will do very well in the new business. There will be other changes here, but we will manage that. We will manage that throughout 18 and into 19, and I have every reason for confidence that we will manage it well. We have a lot of talent inside the company, and as the example of Eric Schulz, and now Bruno Even, who we announced yesterday as the new head of helicopters, demonstrates we can also attract talent from other renowned companies. So that is all very encouraging, and trust me, that will go well this year. And I'm trusted by the board of directors, obviously, to manage the management changes ahead of us. Another challenge is digitalization. Digitalization is a challenge, but at the same time, a huge opportunity to improve performance in our industry. We're well underway. We seriously started that only 3 years ago, not even 3 years ago. We're well underway, particularly with our partnership with Palantir. What started as applying data analytics to smoothen the ramp up on the 350 has already resulted in building a very impressive platform, the Skywise platform. I think we saw that briefly in the picture, where we are gathering increasing numbers of airlines, suppliers, OEM, and that's the kind of services and new services that I think we're going to build at Airbus in the coming years. And last but not least, yes, the compliance issues are still with us. The investigations are ongoing. At the same time, we are improving our internal ethics and compliance policies, but more than that, values, behaviors has been a very important focus of us in 2017. That will continue in 18 to really come up through this process of cleansing, if you will, with a company that is second to none as far as ethics and compliance is concerned. And all that, and then I really hand over to Harold, if I may, Clay, for 18, I'm confident will result in a continuing growth of our earnings, of our cash, and this is why we're looking very optimistically into 2018, a year again that will be not short on challenges, but given the track record at Airbus, given our DNA of tackling challenges and not running away, I'm very confident that we can prevail and succeed.
Thank you, Tom. So Harold, let's dive in a little bit to some of the financial and operational details from last year. How did you see 2017 from your perspective as CFO?
Yeah, Clay, thanks, and good morning, everybody. There's a simple indicator if you want to know how the year went. It's when the CFO has a smile on or not. I can tell you, when we're using this facility here throughout the year, probably my face was more grim from time to time, given the challenges Tom alluded to before. But yesterday you see a smile. Yeah, I'm very happy with the results. We could secure for 2017 and also create the baseline for 18 and beyond. I think we delivered on all of the commitments. We overachieved the KPIs, and that's really thanks to a great team achievement and effort by all.
Super. So what about the performance specifically of the sort of the main business segments, helicopters, defense and space, commercial airplanes?
Yeah, well, I mean, very briefly, maybe on the commercial side first, if we have a look, I mean, you all know it was a fantastic run in 2017 at the end with the 1109 net orders. That brings us to a record order book of more than 7,000 in aircraft, I think exceeding everybody's expectation, maybe even our own, if you may allow me to say, Tom, here. But I think what is more important than the pure number, I mean, that means on the A320, that's really more than in support of the ramp-up we're doing to the rate 60. Actually, that level of demand we have in the order book, but also campaigns ongoing, is clearly supporting, I mean, a ramp to a higher level. I think we talked this morning in the analyst call about the potential, I mean, to go to 70. So clearly the commercial side of things is in very good shape for that. On the A350, also very strong order book, supporting the walk to rate 10, which is not a walk in the park, but the progress made in 2017 is just fantastic on the industrial side, and so we're well set now for the rate 10 in 2018 on the A350. And also on the A380, at the very end of 2017, early days of 18, we are very pleased. This year we're going to have 12 deliveries. Next year is going to be 8. And now, thanks to the renewed deal with Emirates, we secure a baseline of 6 aircraft moving forward, which is not where we want to leave it, but clearly creating more potential on top of it. On the helicopter side, I mean, market remains very difficult, so very pleased that helicopter could defend 50% leadership position in the civil and public market, boosted then by military orders, 48 Super Pumas. I think this is a record which we didn't see for long in the military field, and that I think is giving some good perspectives also for the years to come on the helicopter side. Defense and space, book-to-bill was a bit slower, but it's probably a bit more due to the phasing of some campaigns. Tom mentioned already that now Kuwait on the Eurofighter is in order book, 5 tankers on the MTT side for NATO, good order intake on the medium and light. Telecom markets in space was a bit softer, but we got also 2 new generation telecom satellites in here, which I think demonstrates the competitiveness of our product portfolio. So all in all, I think with that commercial achievement in 2017, we're very well set for the growth path.
Great. So overall, a strong operational performance. What did it all mean for the key financials, for revenues, earnings, cash flow?
Yeah, I think we have a couple of charts. I mean, we obviously disclosed the numbers. I mean, this morning, revenues 67 billion euros. Actually, that's in terms of underlying performance, a 10-11% improvement thanks to the 718 deliveries which we did on the commercial aircraft side. On the other side, we had the divestments in defense and space, what we call the parameter change, which accounts for 2 billion. So all in all, it's therefore pretty stable in here. If we look on the EBIT adjusted, which is the underlying performance of the company, we're very happy that we could actually improve the EBIT adjusted year on year by 10% on the comparable parameter, still 7% all in. That's clearly above the expectation, I think, and it's above the guidance we set ourselves, which we gave to the market. How did we achieve that? Clearly the boost came from commercial aircraft side with the ramp up of the 320s, with a good progress, I mean, on the A350. The hedge rates we have in our hedge book in 2017 helped also to improve the underlying performance, and the R&D ramp down was a bit faster than even planned. So in defense and space, the performance, the underlying performance was rather stable. Helicopter the same, but a big challenge, I mean, given the deliveries and the mix drop compensated by cost savings and transformation efforts also in the helicopter space. Let's talk a second about, some adjustments, however, to the underlying performance. All in all, that's about minus 800 million. The lion's share of that is the accrual which we had to take on the A400M. Tom talked about it already before. That adds to the bill. However, now we have secured a new capability roadmap. We have defined a new delivery plan that got agreed with the nations. On that basis, we signed the declaration of intent, which in substance is more than an MOU. I think it's really the objective of the nations and ourselves, to make that work and make that happen. And all of that is now wrapped up in this provision of 1.3. But clearly, therefore, I think we got our hands around it, and that's a major step forward compared to where we were a year ago here. Other elements in there is about the capital gains from the divestment, which we did already at the beginning of 17, so that's not so much great news here, I would say. If we then look a bit maybe on the cash side, yeah, that's in particular where I have my smile, is 2.9 billion of free cash flow before M&A. Was a fantastic achievement. Some of you spotted a cash crisis in the company a bit earlier this year. It's just normal. As the last quarter, we did not less than 6 billion of cash generation, and that just means that everybody was hands-on deck to make sure that the underlying performance, working capital focus, CapEx focus clearly came through, and that's what I think is strongly represented in these numbers. I think that's even more impressive as that 2.9 billion includes more than $1 billion cash charge on the A400M, so it tells you something about the underlying cash performance of the rest of the business. Happy to say as well that on the sales financing side, the aircraft financing side, we saw a very healthy market again in 2017, so it caused us to consume only 100 million of our own cash, so very healthy. That compensated for the absence of the ECA financing in 2017. But again, on this front, I think very good progress as we agreed the process with the ECAs to resume ECA financing in 2018. And therefore, we can now make an application moving forward on a case-by-case basis with the ECAs. Then all in, we have the divestment benefits, we pay the dividend, made contributions to our pensions. All in all, that means that the net cash position ended up with 13 billion, which gives us a lot of flexibility.
Right. So let's look ahead now. What do prospects for 2018 look like? And what do you think you'd like to say about what shareholders can expect after the annual general meeting?
Absolutely, with pleasure. So first, what is the outlook on 2018? Clearly based on that strong performance 2017, we target to deliver around 800 commercial aircraft in 2018. That depends on engine manufacturers meeting their commitments. And assuming these 800 aircrafts being delivered in 2018, we see the EBIT adjusted, i.e. the underlying performance, increasing by 20%. That means from 4.3 billion in 2017 going to 5.1. We'll then have on top a benefit of the IFRS 15 accounting change of 100 million on top of it. And on the cash side, we target to repeat the strong performance of 2017 on the free cash flow of 2.9 billion, also in 2018 on a before sales finance and M&A basis. What does it mean for shareholders? We have a net income 2017 of 3 billion. That is a very solid base to apply our dividend policy at the upper range of 40%. and that means the payout ratio gives us 150 euro per share. That's what we suggested to the board yesterday. That's what the board approved yesterday as a proposal moving forward to the AGM in April. And that reflects our confidence not only in the achievements 2017, but certainly also our confidence in 2018 in terms of the cash generation, the earnings growth, 18, but also beyond.
Super. Thanks, Harold, and thanks again, Tom. So, ladies and gentlemen, now it's your turn. We're now ready to start the question and answer session, so if you'll bear with me, just a few housekeeping points for the media here in the room. When you ask a question, please state your name and the media organization that you represent. Secondly, as we have a significant audience joining us via the web, as a courtesy of them, and so they can hear your question, please wait for our colleagues with the microphones to bring the microphone to you before you ask the question. And then if you don't mind, please stand so that we can see you and the people viewing remotely can do the same. And finally, if you don't mind, please ask your question in English. With that, who would like to ask the first question?
Yes, hello. Is that working? Yeah.
It's working.
Thomas Hanke from Handelsblatt. I'm aware that you've already talked a lot about single aisle and motor problems this morning. Nevertheless, could you please tell us, out of the 800 airplanes you want to deliver this year, how many will be single aisle Neos? And another question, I don't know if I got you right, if Boeing goes ahead with its middle of the market plane and comes with an attractive price, an attractive offer, you said that there will be no response, no new response by Airbus. So your response is already in place with the A321 long range?
So deliveries and middle of the market.
Yeah, happy to take those. Deliveries, all in all, single aisle will be, the plan is way above 600 aircraft this year, out of 800. And roughly that should be split between 2/3 Neo, new engine, and 1/3 CO, i.e. the old engine. That's currently the plan. I will see. I mean, whether we need to make adjustments here depends very much also on the engine situation, as you know. Secondly, the famous middle of the market aircraft. Well, we've said many times, and I'm happy to repeat that when it comes to the so-called middle of the market, we are very confident with our existing portfolio. We have a great A321. Initially, we had this picture here on the screen, the A321 long range, making its first transatlantic flight to New York. We have great planes coming. That's a 240 passenger aircraft, by the way. We have the new 330 Neos coming online later this year. So our presence in the middle of the market is very strong. And if it was easy to define the mythical plane for the middle of the market, I think our competitor would have done it already. I mean, obviously, that does not exclude whatever they come up with, if they come up with a middle of the market aircraft, that we can further improve our own product offering.
Next question.
So it's Björn Färm from Liam. If you look at the fundamentals of your earnings, it's 100% coming from the civil airliners. And if you look at these programs, the 380 is, I would say, gray or pink at best. The 330 is in a transition period. The 320 has engine problems, and the 350 is in a loss-making ramp. So where you double that result, where is the money coming from? Must be the 320.
Well, first of all, sir, I can tell you that your calculation is dead wrong. We're making good earnings in helicopters. We're making good earnings in defense. If we take the A400M apart from, this is a special case, as you know, from defense and space. Defense and space is quite close to 10% return on sales. So that's a very impressive impressive figure. As far as our portfolio is concerned, yes, the 320, we always called that the bread and butter business. Obviously, we're making a huge chunk of our profits out of a 320. We've always made good profits out of a 330. We still do. In absolute terms, that's been the most profitable aircraft probably that we had. We did profits in the last couple of years on the 380. The 350, you know, our target hasn't changed for years now to break even at the end of 19. We're on a good path to do that as we are reducing recurring costs. And then eventually, or very rapidly, the 350 should be at the same profitability level or higher than the 330 is and has been for many years. So we have a very profitable portfolio. But it's just the way it is in this business that in order to develop new aircraft that are predictably in the ramp-up phase not profitable, you need a strong portfolio that is profitable. And yes, our strength is very much in single aisle. But on the other hand, I mean, it's a myth. It's a myth that we are not strong in wide bodies and long range. I think John Lee said it when he had his press conference with Fabrice a couple of weeks ago. We looked at the numbers. 7 out of 10 years, we have outsold Boeing on the wide bodies. So tell me, is that strong or is that weak? Yes, we didn't have a good year last year, but that's certainly not a reference here to project into the future. No, we feel very comfortable, very competitive with our existing portfolio. Airbus has never had a more competitive product portfolio, soon starting from the 100-seater, when the C-Series becomes an Airbus product, up to the 500-seater, the A380.
I'm happy I got you so fired up, Tom, because my question was actually positive in terms of you generating more than double the profit in civil airliners, despite a landscape which was challenging. I have one follow-up question. Is the learning curve of the 350 ahead of schedule?
Is it what?
Ahead of schedule.
Is it ahead of schedule?
The learning curve on the 350 is absolutely on track, and as I said before, certainly the ramp-up that is much more efficient than we've had in previous ramp-up phases due to data analytics and other advanced tools has contributed to that. So we are very happy with that. I said in the analyst conference, I think I saw you having your earphones on as well, that in terms of recurring costs, outstanding work in the FAL. Outstanding work is a very good measure in the ramp-up phase, how well it's going, where you are in the learning curve. It's already almost at where the mature 330 has been for many years. Operational reliability is already above 99%. That is remarkable, and all our customers are very positive about that. Now that program is going well.
But Tom, the gentleman is right. The best is yet to come.
Yeah, sure. Say that. Break even at the end of 19, and then obviously the 350 will be a major contributor to the profits of the company in the coming years. Okay,
so last comment from me then. Are you then beating the industry practice learning curve with the 350, with all the positives you mentioned?
I don't.
Are you beating the typical learning curve for with the 350, the industry typical learning curve?
I think, yes, we are somewhat beating the learning curve we had initially predicted for the 350, absolutely. But I mean, you can, I've never seen an Airbus or an aircraft program that in the ramp-up phase, in the industrialization, for years was in a stable phase of predicting the break-even point. And we've been, I don't know, Harold, I mean, you've been saying that, I've been saying that for, I don't know, at least 3 or 4 years now, that the end of 19 is the point where we should break even on the 350. And sir, we're looking good on that, okay?
Next question. Yes, sir.
I'm Guillaume Lecomte-Bonnet from IAN Online. 2 questions. The C-Series 300 could weaken or maybe kill the A319. I would like to have your opinion on that. And could you elaborate a little bit more about the engine problem of the NEO with Pratt & Whitney, but also with LEAP? Thank you very much.
Sure. Well, the C-Series happens to be a very competitive aircraft. Otherwise, trust me, we would not have been acquiring this program at the lower end between 100 and 150 seats in terms of weight, in terms of performance, etc. Nevertheless, the 319 is still selling. I think we had another order just last week from China because it has very particular features. So we will see when the C-Series is indeed an Airbus product in the near future, how these two aircraft behave. But the 319 already today is not a bestseller. It's a marginal aircraft. And we'll see whether customers who have already, for instance, a large 319 fleet want to continue with the 319, or whether customers have a certain preference for the C-Series. In any case, I think that's a very good situation for our portfolio. The engine. I should elaborate on the engine challenge.
Yeah, both
well, where should I start and where should I end? This is something that is going on now for a couple of years. I think I said before, we've been in permanent crisis management, at least for the last 2-3 years. The engines have made progress. The engines are more mature, obviously, than they were a year ago or 2 years ago. The engine makers, and Pratt particularly, but also the other one, have introduced fixes of the glitches that were apparent quite successfully. We have a new one, which was not expected, obviously, that appeared early, at least on my radar screen, early last week. And as I said, we're currently investigating what it really means. It is not pretty. It certainly is disruptive for the delivery flow, and we are in a ramp-up situation, as you all know. But our teams and the engine maker teams, the Pratt teams, have been working together very, very closely in recent years. Had to, obviously. We have a lot of transparency of what's happening there. And they're currently investigating not only what the implications are, but what the mitigation will be. And don't underestimate the ingenuity of our own teams and the fighting spirit of our own teams. Never ever give up to come up with mitigating actions. We're early in the year, so let's not dramatize that situation. I'm quite confident as we stand here today that we can also tackle that issue and still deliver the number of aircraft that we plan to deliver by the end of this year.
Super. Next question, here in the middle.
I would like to ask if the decreasement of the production of A400M is going to affect the employment in Seville, in the factory of Seville, and the suppliers too, and if you are planning to compensate that situation with other program. Thank you.
Well, obviously, I would be lying if I would tell you here. That would be a pretty obvious lie, that if we adapt production rates downwards or upwards, that has no effect on employment. But we're a big company. We're working on mitigating that effect on employment as much as we can. Fortunately, we are in a situation on the commercial side where, as I said, we have ramp up, we need additional resources. Whether we are able, or to what extent we are able to mitigate the employment impact of going down remains to be seen. I assume that will be a negative net impact, despite all the efforts that we will certainly make to get those employees affected into other programs, but something I think overall the company can well handle.
Tom, if you allow me to add to that, maybe the stretching of the delivery and the production plan, which we decided and agreed with the nations in the course of 2017, I think is exactly to secure a level of production and hence also employment on a sustainable base moving forward. If we would have kept the delivery plan, the production plan, in the way it was before, there would have been a risk to secure export orders in time with a much more brutal adjustment. So what we're doing basically is a kind of a baselining of the program at a low rate, which gives us more time to secure the export orders in which we believe. And therefore, I think we should see that measure at the end, I think, as a favorable measure.
Next question, please.
Yeah, hi, it's Robert Wall with the Wall Street Journal. I had a question on rates and then on the management changes. On rate, Tom, you talked about commercial demand on single aisle for maybe even 70 a month. So I was wondering what your timeline is to make a decision on that, and also a timeline on decision about maybe a rate increase on 350, since you're now getting close to the target. And then on the management changes, a lot of new people coming in, obviously. I noticed that it's the XCOM still is consistent of largely middle-aged white men. As one of those myself, I sympathize, but I'm wondering if it's maybe time to look at more diversity for a company that says it's in the 21st century.
Thank you very much, Robert, shaming me here on the stage. But thank you also for your humbleness to identify yourself also as a middle-aged white man. Yeah, that's certainly a weakness. I admit that. We're working on this. We have some very fine female talents in the next line. Just one from the back of my head, you know, the chief engineer for Defense and Space, Grazia Vittadini, is one of them. The head of quality in Airbus Commercial, Nathalie Ducombeau, and we have quite a few. We don't have them yet in the Group Executive Committee, but we're working on that. But the Group Executive Committee is getting more diverse, Robert. I mean, we have now decided that, for instance, the new head of Airbus China will be part of the Group Executive Committee as the head of Airbus North America. The new man, Jeff Nittle, before Alan McArthur, will continue to be on the Executive Committee. So I think compared with competitors, we're still a pretty international company, and I would wish that to be reflected even more in the future. If we look at where our markets are, particularly Asia Pacific is gaining in importance. No doubt that we also need to recruit increasingly management talent in Asia Pacific, not only to serve in that market, but also to have group-wide roles for the whole company. We're on the way, and yes, we're a little bit slow here. I would not try to say that we are world leading in this respect. You got us. What is the other one?
Rate 70.
Oh, well, rate increase, single aisle, rate increase, possible rate increase 350. I think these are decisions that we will have to take, that we will take in 2018. As Harold said, I said it in the conference, we are in a phase of, let's say, advanced study of rate 70. As every time at Airbus, we don't hasten things, we don't do things overnight, surprise the supply chain. We thoroughly discuss that with the supply chain. Today, the critical element are obviously the engines and engine availability, and good engine availability, but there are other choke points in the, or potential choke points in the supply chain. We're working on that. As said, from the demand side, rate 70 would clearly be a no-brainer. We could go even higher, but what can we do with the supply chain at which point of time? That's carefully investigated right now. And then obviously some of that growth that results from that will, we already decided to increase the rates in Tianjin. We will increase then the rates also in Mobile, Alabama.
And A350 rate.
Yeah, I said both. Sorry. Both decisions on rate increases, 320 and 350, are on the table, will be on the table this year.
Very good. Next question. Yes, please.
Jack Dutton, Air Finance Journal. So I have two questions. The first question is about, obviously with all the liquidity available in the market and kind of inactivity of the ECAs, we've seen Boeing launch the AFIC product, which they're projecting to be about 5% of all their deliveries for 2018. I know you guys are thinking about launching a similar product. Where are we with that? When are you expecting to launch it? And my second question is about the A380. In a few years' time, it will be over 25 years old in terms of the design of the aircraft. How are you thinking of revamping the aircraft, Also, is there any potential for orders, new orders or new customers for this year, whether that's from China or for the likes of IAG? Thanks.
Yeah, on the aircraft financing side, I mean, I think I said before that I mean the market was extremely liquid. I mean, in 2017 we expect the same thing for 2018, but that doesn't mean that we are inactive. So the strength of the team you can measure in the low sales finance exposure as we have it, namely, I mean, 1.5 billion at the end of the year. The more successful they are, the lower our sales finance exposure, and that means that they just deploy the full toolbox in terms of financing opportunities in the market. Obviously, lessors play a key role, again, in 2017, all in all, was about 50%. And we're also exploring, I mean, options, including insurance models, next to the ECA coming back in 2018, as I said before. So I think we're sitting on a very competitive toolbox to support the deliveries in 18 and in the future from a financing standpoint. 380, Tom?
Well, on the 380, the very positive development on the 380 is that we have now secured orders for a minimum production rate from 2020 onwards at 6 a year. 6 a year is very low, but we can do it with a reasonable level of efficiency. That doesn't mean we're still making money on that, but the losses that such a low rate would reduce are certainly digestible, are nowhere material against the earnings stream that we are forecasting safely for the company. That's the minimum, the rock bottom. That's the way you need to think about it. On that, I'm pretty sure we'll be able to get additional orders, be it repeat orders from existing customers, where a couple of leads or a couple of campaigns going on here, or new orders from big markets. And obviously, if you look around the world, we've been very vocal about it. There's one area, there's one big country, one big market where the A380 is clearly underrepresented, and that's China. The Emirates order gives us time to work, particularly also with Chinese airlines, to see whether this aircraft that should be ideally suited for transporting increasing numbers of middle-class passengers in China to international markets. So I'm pretty confident about the future of the 380s, well into the 20s, beyond 2025. This is what we have in firm orders right now at a minimum, and that we can build on that, and that our teams will come up in the meantime with additional proposals how to increase the attractiveness and the efficiency of the 380. So don't count it out yet. The 380 risk, if you look at it from a risk point of view, going forward is really minimal, but I see some significant upside on what we have secured now as minimal production rates.
Next question, please.
Michael Hubisch from Flight Global. One question again regarding, or two questions in total, but my first question is regarding Pratt & Whitney and CFM engines on the NEO. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think you didn't deliver any Pratt & Whitney powered NEOs in January. Can you say what is, of the 400 NEOs you want to deliver this year, can you say what the split of Pratt & Whitney and CFM engines will be? And can you also elaborate on where you are with the CFM delays on the NEO? And my second question is regarding A380. How many of your current backlog from, I think, 95 aircraft do you expect to really deliver for the 380 program?
Well, CFM Pratt, roughly the 400, that equals the 2/3. I think the plan is today, roughly 50-50. Whether that needs to be adjusted needs to be seen against the backdrop of those new engine challenges. And yes, CFM is late delivering engines. They need to recover. We have their top management attention, not just at CFM. I said in the analyst call, also the GE top and the Safran top, to do what is necessary to recover on the delivery stream to us as quickly as possible in 2018. What was the other one?
383 backlog.
To actually deliver.
Well, clearly, at least the majority of those. I mean, to give you an idea about backlog, backlog is not something lofty. Backlog is where people have put serious money down. This is an audited backlog. So these are firm orders. Cannot exclude that one or two customers might drop out of that, but the bulk of the backlog is with the very solid customer Emirates. And that is very important going forward, and hence the recent commitment of Emirates to the 20 plus 16, 36 aircraft gives us a lot of confidence into the 20s as far as the production is concerned. Thanks to Emirates, I mean, the program can go on into the 20s, is obviously the backbone airline, the backbone customer for our 380. And I think currently roughly half of all 380s flying worldwide are Emirates-operated aircraft.
Next question, please.
Christian Schubert, Frankfurter Allgemeine. My first question would be on the financial result. If I look at that, I see a swing of almost 2 billion to the positive. Can you explain? Can you give us some details, please? And secondly, on the research and development expenses, they are going down. You talked about this in a positive way, but I was wondering, is this really something positive? One is saying you should fix the roof when the sun is shining, so prepare the future. That is also a question, of course, related to a completely new airplane, like the A320. Is this something for the 30s, for 2030 or later, or maybe even earlier? And if you allow my last question on the ECA, the fact that the ECAs are coming back, at the same time the legal issues, the compliance issues are not closed yet. So what's the explanation of that?
All right. Yes, first on the other financial result, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's a strong support to the net income and the EPS. What is inside, basically two elements. One is the revaluation of balance sheet items, FX balance sheet items at the year end, I mean, 2017, and also the valuation of our financial instruments, in particular the colors which we have. With the exchange rate evolution we saw in particular over the last quarter, that provides a decent uplift support to the financial result. All in, that's number one, and the second point in there is that in the context of the review of the A380 situation, we also reviewed the commercial assumptions for the launch rate reimbursements, which we carry on the balance sheet, and that reassessment in terms of the assumptions caused a release of launch rate liability, which is recorded in other financial result. Second question, I think, maybe not necessarily in order. ECA financing is coming back. I think that clearly demonstrates what we had been saying all throughout 2017, that ECA is moving forward, and that process is disconnected from the investigations into the past. However, very clearly what it tells you that the ECAs now got confidence into our renewed, strengthened compliance processes. Otherwise, they wouldn't have agreed on the ECA process to resume in 2018. It's more for the ECAs, I would say, to comment, but that's our reading clearly at our end. And the third question was?
There's a second question.
R&D.
Right.
Yeah, R&D is coming down. I think that's, again, I mean, fully in line with what we're saying since quite a while. And I think it's absolutely consistent as we invested double-digit billions over the last years and the last decade into that fantastic product portfolio. So does it mean that we're doing nothing for the future? Not at all. At the same time, the investment into new product platforms is reducing as the product suite is very nicely completed. We are investing more into R&D. We are investing more into innovation. We're investing more into digital. and that's what you can see if you trace it down a bit, and the guys are happy to take you through it. That's what you see in the headquarter EBIT evolution in 2017, where you have a quite sizable step up in spend, and a good part of that is related to our investments in digital and also into innovation. So we get ready for the future. However, I mean, big platform development, we have a holiday.
Next question, please.
Sebastian Steinke from Flugrevue in Germany. I have a question concerning your product portfolio, please, especially the narrow-body family. You used to have the A321 being sort of the big member of the family and a bit of an exort. Today it's catching more than half of the orders of the family. So I wonder, would you like to add a bigger member of that family, especially if your competitor might come up with something else in that same market area? Thank you.
Well, you're absolutely right. If you follow the orders, say 5 years ago, and earlier, the 321 was rather marginal. Now it's becoming more and more the strongest member. What is it? 40% of the backlog roughly is 321 already of a family. And at the same time, in the lower end, we are strengthening our portfolio with the C series going forward. The picture, what I addressed before, the famous middle of the market, is that on the upper end, we get very capable 330s with very attractive capital costs, 330 Neos, 800 and 900. So you have to look at it really in a cross portfolio view, not in the way, okay, this is single aisle and then long range has wide body has nothing to do with it. At that point, we have the 321 long range now. We have the 330 Neos coming in. And certainly, as it happens when you design, when you architect good aircraft, we have growth potential still in our aircraft in case we need to respond to new competitive challenges.
Next question.
Thank you. Stéphane Iglesias, Radio France. Tom, you said a few minutes ago that the changes of the Airbus top management come from a problem of generation. Your explanation fits for John Lee, but are you sure it stands for Fabrice Bregier?
Well, if I remember correctly, I said mostly generational change. Mostly. No, obviously Fabrice does not fit into that category. I think you know the explanation. You heard it also from Fabrice why he's leaving the company. That is crystal clear. Fabrice has done a lot for the company over years. Absolutely, he's been one of the outstanding contributors. Commercial aircraft for the last 10 years, and before it, helicopters. Before that, at MBDA, he's one of the towering figures, I would say, in the aerospace industry in Europe. And so, certainly not happy that Fabrice is leaving. But as I expressed right after the announcement, in his situation, I would have done the same.
Next question.
Bonjour, Bruno Trevidic, Les Echos. It's two short questions about the single aisle. First, about the Pratt & Whitney issue. Would you be compensated for this issue, or have you already been compensated financially? That's the first point. And regarding Bombardier, if everything's going fine, when will we begin to see the positive impact of the Bombardier C-Series acquisitions in your results?
You want to give it a try?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we said when we announced the deal with Bombardier that we would close in the second half of 2018. I think all in all, the preparation work for the closing is advancing very well. So we still see that in the second half of 2018, but I wouldn't speculate on the precise timing now. All of the numbers we showed today in terms of the 2018 guidance is before the C-Series coming on board. Once that is the case, it will be consolidated at 100%, and with the agreements which we made, I think it will support our mid and long-term growth story, both on earnings as well as on cash flows by the addition of the C-Series in the portfolio. Second question, compensation. Compensation, we record engine manufacturers' commitments, and there are some incentives going along with it. If you read the release of some of the engine manufacturers correctly throughout 2017, you can see that. Also in 2017, obviously we delivered 181 NEOs, and we said at the beginning of the year around 200. It's not exactly that number. There is some support from it to compensate for the shortfall we had in CEO and in the NEO. We could compensate with the flexibility concept with the CEOs, pull more out of it, but there's some compensation. And we clearly count on the commitments and the contractual commitments also from the engine manufacturers in 2018.
Thanks. Next question. That's fine.
Hi, Carlos Quizá from El Confidencial in Spain. Two questions. First one regarding the A400M. I would like to know if this year is the year where Airbus will sign an exportation contract in the end, because you have been waiting for that for so many years. I don't know if the problems with the program are still interfering with those contracts. And the second question is regarding the transformation of the A320 in a military aircraft. I don't know if you have already decided when and where this transformation is going to take place in Spain, because Seville is prepared to that, but I don't know if you have decided yet if it's going to take place in Seville or in Madrid, and what can you tell us in general about this new program? Thank you.
On the A400M, well, let me first say, and then I come to export, and I really want to have that on the record. The agreement that we signed with 6 governments, I think, and OCCAR on the 5th of February is really a breakthrough agreement for us. Remember, we called upon governments a year ago to engage with us in rebaselining the contract, because the financial burden for us and the financial unpredictability, this Damocles sword hanging over us, was just too significant for the company to go forward in this situation. Now, negotiations with governments are never easy, don't happen overnight, particularly if you have to have negotiations with 6 governments and the European Procurement Agency. But I would like to thank the governments. And those who know me know that I hardly ever do that, but here I do it. I thank the government customers for their engagement on these important negotiations. And that really also reflects the importance that they attach to the A400M, which is increasingly operational, fully operational with the user nations. So it's really a win-win government. It gives the governments more predictability on the delivery stream going forward. As Harold alluded to, that will be reduced for the benefit of customers, but also for the benefit of the company, employment, etc., not least in Spain. It gives them predictability on the capability roadmap. So that is really a very good situation, and that leads me to say, yes, the worst is clearly behind us. We are over the hump. Yes, we need to still ratify or sign the final agreements, but I have no doubt that the governments will honor their commitments that they've taken under the so-called Declaration of Intent on February 5th. Exports is certainly high on the agenda of the teams led by our friend Fernando Alonso. He's heavily engaged on that around the world. There are a couple of leads which we are following. Obviously, exports become more realistic, become facilitated as the aircraft matures. And as the air forces that are operating the aircraft today are able to say to those potential export customers, yes, this is an aircraft you can rely on, this is an aircraft that has significant, still growing military capabilities, so that is absolutely positive, and in that sense also the agreement of the 5th of January plays into that direction, helps into the direction of reaching export orders. On the, what did you call it, 320 transformation?
320 military. Second. 320 military.
Military. Well, I think the best to my knowledge, maybe I need to be updated here, this is still in the study phase. The 330 is a prime example that this militarization has worked. Today, by far the most capable tanker aircraft, and as I think Harald alluded to, we got another order, NATO nations of five aircraft. We have won every competition where we did compete except in the United States with our tanker aircraft. I think it's very, very impressive, and the creativity and ingenuity of our Spanish engineers particularly to design the world's leading refueling system, soon autonomous refueling, is very impressive. We are studying, indeed, can we use other platforms like the 320 to militarize, but I think that is not concluded yet. Militarizing commercial platforms should not be underestimated. It's usually underestimated, whether you put radars on top or other sensors, cut holes into the aircraft. It's easy said, but very difficult to be done. We should do that, and I would do that, provided we have a right contractual framework for it. i.e. risk is not entirely on industry, like we unfortunately had the situation on the A400M.
Next question, please.
It's Total Aviation Week. I have a couple of questions on rates. If you went to 70 on the single aisles, when would that become effective? Already in 2020 or later? And would it be in steps? Would you go to 70 right away, or would you come to 65 first? Then on 350, you said you're studying higher rates as well. What rates exactly? And finally, on the 330neo, you're at 6 right now, on the 330 program combined. Do you have an outlook as far as that is concerned for 2-3 years from now, potentially going higher there as well?
Well, Jens, I have to disappoint you here. You said we are studying higher rates. It's blatantly clear the demand is there. The demand is even, go higher than rate 70. But if you look at the situation in the supply chain, particularly the engine situation, we need to be very careful here that we don't overstretch, and I think that is a major issue. But I'm positive that we will advance these studies and that we will take decisions, as I said, when Robert asked, certainly in 2018, the same goes for the 350. Obviously, that is very much dependent on the demand. And the third was on the 330, right? Mm. Yeah, 330neo. Well, I mean, one step at a time. 2018 will be the year where we transition from the current 330s, the CEOs, to the NEOs. That is what we are focused on. We have quite a few deliveries ahead of us until the end of the year for the 330 NEOs. We want to have the best possible introduction into the market with our airline customers, and then we'll see if sales pick up on the 330 NEOs, and I have no doubt that Eric Schulz will work on that in a very engaged way with his team. We can also see what we do about the rate going forward on the 330s or 330 NEOs. But first we need to manage the introduction and the transition then from the 330 as is to the 330 NEO. That's the main focus this year.
Let's take a question from over here.
Isabel Myers from Chuleco here in Toulouse. I'd like to come back to the A380 questions. Will the lower A380 rate of 6 per year by 2020 have any annual EBIT and cash flow impact? And if so, can you please quantify? And can you sustain the program overhead cost at such a low production rate?
I'm very lucky that I have a man with me today who knows the answer to these questions. Harold.
And that man can just say that the teams did a fantastic job over the last years to bring the break-even point of the 380 down. Let's remember, I mean, we said initially 30, 35, right? Then below 30. I can say 2017 with the 15 A380s delivered, we're very close to break-even. I think that's a fantastic achievement by the program management team and all. And we'll not stop here. But what we said, I think, going to the kind of a industrial baseline of 6, that this can be still run in an industrially meaningful, efficient way. However, that does not mean that it is EBIT or cash flow break-even. That will dilute the earnings and the cash flow at a rate 6. To some extent, to an acceptable extent, but clearly, as Tom said before, this is not where we target to be. We see that as a baseline on which we will continue to do all efforts to take additional orders, therefore to bring it back, and therefore to avoid a dilution on EBIT and cash by 2020 and beyond. But again, I think this order from Emirates gives us the baseline, the platform to do that, gives us visibility, predictability, and as I said before, the dilution, if we would stay at a 6, is at an acceptable level. Question right here.
I just wanted to ask Tom, we've talked earlier about the management changes and the board has trusted you to make those changes, but what about yourself? When will we get some idea of who will replace you, what the succession planning is, and will it be a French person?
Well, look, it's usually good practice, Peggy, that incumbent CEOs don't decide themselves about their succession. They would probably be in the job then forever. But that's a board matter. I have every reason to trust that the board will take the right decision. This is a very professional process. We're looking for candidates internally, we're looking for candidates externally, and at the end, I'm absolutely convinced that they will pick the right person to lead the company going forward. So, sorry, I'm a bit tight-lipped here, but every confidence that this company will do the right thing. I mean, you've seen how our board acted last year, the decisions they took calmly on the succession, etc. So rest assured, we'll find a very good successor to lead the company in the 2020s. Pardon?
I know it's a board decision to decide who will do it, but can you give us any guidance really of when we might get some idea, when you might start openly talking about timing for succession? Isn't that something that you also would be involved in?
Yes, I expect so, but the process, or as to when the board will reach a conclusion, Peggy, that's classified. I can't talk about that.
Let's take a question back here.
Hi, I'm Bauer, Les Echos. I would like to say that the charge on the A40M are maybe the last, but I would like to understand why you don't start to take charge on the future fines you will have about your, how do you say, governance issues, and if there were any discussion on that on the board to already put aside some charges on governance issues. And the other question is about the delivery of the A40M. What is your aim? Like 11 planes a year, or more, or less?
So very clearly, I mean, the board, but I can assure you the external auditors, I mean, are looking very, very carefully in terms of, I mean, when is it we have to record something. And there are two criteria, I mean, you need to fulfill. The one is you need to be able to assess a probability, and the second one, you need to be able to assess a quantum. And both criteria are not met, and therefore I think it's absolutely pointless, I mean, to speculate about any fine, any science, any quantum, any probability. But this is very closely, I mean, looked at obviously by the board and the external auditors, I mean, as I said before.
If we have one more question, we have...
number of
A400M.
Sorry.
As we said a bit before, in the 380, there's a baseline of 6. So what we're doing with the agreement signed with the nations is we reduce the production level 1511, and then further down without export, call it 8, but clearly we see the export potentials, the campaigns are worked upon, and then they should add to 8 on top of it. Then we will see what it is. I mean, the industrial capability and the demonstrated performance look into 2017 is 19 aircraft, so clearly we can do, but certainly will not build whitetails for the fun of doing it.
Last question.
Hi, I'm Stefan Borensky from Aerospatium. Actually, I have 3 questions. One is about orders. I see there is a drop of 6.5 billion in the orders taken by Defense and Space, and I would like to know what is the share of space in that, because it's been quite a depressed market. Second question regarding the consolidation of your supply chain. How does this affect your business? And last question, I'd like to have some prospects on employment in 2018 in Airbus, in particular for R&D engineers.
R&D and engineers. So the orders, I mean, if you want, I mean, can answer that one shortly. Please bear in mind, 2016, Defense and Space had a phenomenal run in terms of book-to-bill. From the top of my head, I think, I mean, 1.4. This year, 2017, we ended up, I mean, 0.8. I said before, that's clearly driven by the phasing of some campaigns, which did not materialize, I mean, at the very end of 17, but clearly on which we count for 18. So overall, our perspective in terms of a book-to-bill is around a 1 for the Defense and Space business. Bear in mind as well, I mean, that the divestment of the electronics business and the ones which are at equity, i.e. Ariane Group, is impacting the year-on-year perspective. And on the telecoms or on the space side, the telecom market overall was much softer, and so therefore, I mean, we were happy that we could secure 2 orders for telecom satellites in 2017.
And on the, what is it, the engineers, the R&T engineers, obviously that figure is oscillating, but we're usually briefing through the subcontracting of engineering outside the company. I think we are well versed on keeping the core capabilities inside the company. We have a very strong engineering force in commercial aircraft, obviously, but same in helicopters, in Defense and Space. Defense and Space, they are under the new restructuring. They are put together that makes them even more effective. And if the reason for your question is concern that Airbus would not have the appropriate engineers going forward to develop great new products, I can tell you I don't share that, because I know that we are, if anything, ramping up our efforts of upskilling our engineering force and keeping the core that we need to develop new products in commercial, in helicopters, in defense. We've become much more synergistic in that way because we've become much more integrated. Gone are the days where the chief engineers of the various divisions would not even talk to each other. Long gone. Today, they make integrated plans on how to shift resources from here to there to make sure that we can leverage all the expertise that we have in our company, all the expertise of more than 130,000 employees for all of the company, and not just for a particular business segment. That is huge progress over what we were able to do some years ago.
So I think that concludes our Q&A. Tom, did you have any concluding thoughts?
Supply chain.
Sorry, we missed. That doesn't conclude our Q&A. Supply chain.
My second question was about the consolidation of your supply chain, and how does it affect your business?
Well, some of it we like, some of it we don't. But obviously, our main interest is to have suppliers that are financially, technologically, and in terms of management skills, strong enough to deliver what we need on time and on quality. And that is, I think, where a lot of improvement has to happen in the supply chain, and also a little bit self-critically between the supply chain and Airbus. I mean, obviously, in the spotlight, we always have only those suppliers who are not delivering, but the huge majority of suppliers, let me say that today as well, are fantastic people who deliver great products in very good quality to our aircraft. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to do what we are able to do. 60, 70% value added comes from the supply chain. So obviously, without the supply chain, Airbus could not deliver.
Thanks very much. So I think with that, we will conclude our Q&A. Tom, did you have any final thoughts you'd like to share?
Well, no, not really. I think, again, 2017 is very encouraging for us amidst a lot of challenges, some turmoil, some of the doom and gloom that some of the media have poured over us. We delivered very strongly, even overachieved. It's very encouraging for 2018, and we look with a lot of confidence into 2018 and the challenges we're going to tackle throughout the year. Thank you very much.
Thanks. I think we'll bring the press conference to a close now. Harold and Tom, I think you guys may have a little bit of time to remain here in the event center. So if you've got a follow-up thought or question you want to ask one of these gentlemen, they'll be available to you. And we thank you for your presence with us here today, both at the event center and online. Thanks, everyone, and have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, Clay.